Yo, Joe. Minute. Hello. How we doing? Kent Brindley, your vintage animation and action figure nerd here. Vintage animation and action figure, vintage action figure and animation nerd. Anywho, I'm me. I have already presented you with my top 10 favorite G.I. Joe figures. I presented you with my top 10 Masters of the Universe figures and my 10 favorite He-Man episodes. I'm here to introduce you to my top 10 favorite episodes of G.I. Joe, a Real American Hero. The Sunbow season, the Sunbow years. Deke's version need not apply. Season 2 of Sunbow's G.I. Joe barely need apply. So we're talking about the Sunbow season. Marvel and Sunbow put G.I. Joe on the air in syndication from 85 through about 87. But it started with a miniseries in 1983 and another miniseries in 84 and a miniseries to kick off the 1985 syndicated series and a 5-part miniseries to kick off season 2. A lot of my favorite episodes were either 5-parters, or quite a few of my favorite episodes were either 5-parters or 2-parters. They're being treated as one timeline. They're being treated as seamless. The full episode. Especially right around the time I get into my top 3 or so. Yeah, there are 2 2-parters and 1 5-parter on my top 10 list. Anyway, now we know. Let's get after this. My personal top 10 favorite episodes of G.I. Joe, a Real American Hero. Number 10. We've got Computer Complications from Season 2. I really appreciated Season 2 for trying to continue G.I. Joe. The writing on many of the episodes was fairly downhill. I mean, we can thank Season 2 for introducing Sergeant Slaughter and General Hawk and Serpentor and a plethora of brand new Joes. That just meant that I rarely saw Snake Eyes ever again, and I don't think we ever saw Dusty or Airtight or any of them ever again come Season 2. What Computer Complications did well was to set up the sort of romance between Mainframe and the Joe's Mainframe and Zartan's sister Zorana. She was to break into Joe headquarters and steal something for Cobra, and the first time Mainframe saw her, it was lust at first sight, and eventually Zorana started to feel for him as well. It was a nice setup for It was a nice setup for a 1980s, for a late 80s cartoon. And I feel like it was addressed again in another episode. I can't quite put my finger on it. Anyway, moving forward, we are at number 9. The Funhouse. The Funhouse. Cobra starts kidnapping scientists to lead the Joe team to Cobra starts kidnapping scientists and abducting them for ransom. The Joe team promptly barges in to what turns out to be a phony fortress. One giant funhouse full of animatronic dummies. Be they the robot Cobra troopers who keep shooting at Alpine and Bazooka's oh my goodness, roller coaster car, a whole bunch of Jack-in-the-Boxes and Cobra Commander's image who keep trying to swat it airtight, or a bunch of robots designed in the chrome-masked Cobra Commander's likeness who keep chasing Flint and Lady J around. Oh, and the entire island where the Joes landed is a bomb. A buddy of mine and I used to rent the VHS copy of The Funhouse a lot. It was just a really fun episode. I mean, there's one point where Cobra Commander calls the robots he designed in his likeness a bunch of blundering idiots, which in turn kind of describes Cobra Commander. I mean, and another great thing about the Funhouse was that it was a great opportunity to see the hooded Cobra Commander and a bunch of likenesses of the chrome-masked Cobra Commander in the same episode. So that was pretty awesome on their part. Number 8. What do I have for number 8? It says computer complications, but it's because I was replacing it with something else. Number 8. Spell of the Siren. Number 8. Spell of the Siren. The Baroness gets a hold of the conch of the siren and promptly plays it in order to try to, out of insubordination, so that she can lead Cobra. Well, the spell of the shell of the siren works just as it's promised, and zombifies Cobra Commander and the male Cobra soldiers, along with Duke, Flint, Snake Eyes, Roadblock, any of the male Joes. It's a great opportunity to give the ladies their screen time with Destro never being infected by the spell of the siren, because the Baroness always obviously liked Destro and he could convince her to not use it on him. And one of the Crimson Twins avoided it too. I think it was Tomax. I think Zaymot got hit with the spell of the siren. And how it infected one twin and not the other, the way that this usually worked, I don't remember. Anyway. This also obviously, all of a sudden you saw a whole bunch more G.I. Joe females than you usually did, because the only green shirts you usually saw were all males, and now all of a sudden, presto, there are at least 10 female green shirt GI Joe women. Not even to mention the Cobra soldiers, who all of a sudden, for one episode only, there are a whole bunch of females in the mix because the Baroness needed an army. Zarana hadn't been introduced yet. This was G.I. Joe Season 1. And Jinx hadn't been introduced to the Joes because she was in G.I. Joe the movie. So it was a fun little episode. Their fun little girl power episode, but it could have been better if the green shirted female Joes or the female Cobra officers weren't around for only one episode and then just disappeared into non-existence. Number 7, Cobra's Candidate. This was a fun one. It's mayoral campaign season, and there's a group of young street gangs, and there is a young street gang harassing the voters into voting for one particular candidate. Yes, the street gangs are being paid off by Cobra, as is the candidate for mayor, who is acting as if he is the victim of the gang violence. Yep, Cobra Commander is playing both ends against the other, and so what's just delicious to him is that by helping who seems to be the good candidate, the G.I. Joes are helping Cobra. And Cobra Commander can introduce his policies by making them laws. There's a brief scene in there where it seems as if Zap personally knew one of the young gang members because he specifically addresses her by name and ignores the other two in the scene, but that scene comes and goes. And it's always fun to see an episode that's centered around the Dreadnoks. Always my favorite villains from G.I. Joe. Number 6. I'm going to move things around again. Number 6, Countdown for Zartan. Zartan is to sneak into the Worldwide Defense Center and steal the information that a group of scientists have on terrorism. It's a great Zartan-centered episode, and it reintroduces, albeit briefly, the conflict between Spirit and Storm Shadow. Because for the TV series, Spirit and Storm Shadow were the rivals. The TV series never even touched the rivalry between Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. I don't know that they ever appeared on the same screen. That was a glaring mistake between the TV series and the comic books. Anyway, just like in Cobra's Candidate, the Dreadnoks are being treated as though they're intelligent enough to be training the Cobra Troopers in this episode, and that's kind of humorous to watch. And again, this episode is a great example of Zartan's ability of disguise, and how the Joes kind of trick him into defeating himself is worth a watch. What did I just say? Oh yeah, I made number 6 countdown for Zartan. Number 5, The Captives of Cobra. A great 2-part episode. Cobra manages to get a hold of a data disk with the personnel files on Scarlet, Quick Kick, Barbecue, Shipwreck. Scarlet, Quick Kick, Barbecue, Shipwreck. And Spirit, including their known family members. They then kidnap their families and reduce them to Cobra slaves. An army to stand against the G.I. Joe team, who in turn will not harm their loved ones. Sometimes it's just despicable what Cobra Commander will do. It's a great 2-part episode. The setup for its the setup for the episode break is a nail biter. It's a nail biter, absolutely. And it explores another part of the G.I. Joe team members' lives, because now we're watching their families get abducted by Cobra. Then of course there's how the episode ends. Thunder. Thunder was the 6th Joe that they found his family. I knew there was a 6th one. So they got a hold of the families of Scarlet, Thunder, Shipwreck, Barbecue, Spirit. Oh, not again. Scarlet, Thunder, Shipwreck, Barbecue, Spirit. Oh. Anyway. Number 4. Cobra Stops the World. A great single-part episode. Cobra manages to hog-tie the oil reserves in North America and sends a bumbling political puppet to get oil reserves from a fairly vindictive foreign power. All the while, said political puppet acts like becoming the world's neediest importer of oil is honorable. Whoops, my bad. My mistake. Let's try this again, shall we? Cobra Commander and Cobra uses cloaking technology to cause oil tankers to disappear, thereby tying up the world's oil supply. Now, vehicles need gasoline. And now G.I. Joe is circling the world to find the oil tankers. All of the while, their fuel could run out at any moment because of how Cobra Commander had planned all of this. It's a prime example of just how vindictive Cobra Commander could have sometimes been. Yes, he was narcissistic, he was bumbling, he was extremely short-sighted. He was a coward. There were days when Cobra Commander could be very, very vindictive. And almost a lot more intelligent than on other days. Number 3, Cold Slither. You'll be joining us soon, a band of vipers playing our tune with a venom sting. Oops. The comedy of the Cold Slither episode. Where do I even begin? Cobra is running the risk of becoming flat broke. So they hire out the Dreadnoks to become a hair metal band and try to use hypnotic music to subjugate human beings, to subjugate civilians into a zombie army. I kid you not, from what I remember of this episode, that is basically the premise. It's just it's downright parody of the music business or any other business in the 1980s. Don't even get me started on the climax where the G.I. Joes have destroyed the equipment have destroyed the hypnotic equipment, but the musical instruments are still there. So the Joe team, having just mops the floor with Cold Slither, proceeds to play their own theme song in front of this audience. Yeah, it really is a great episode. I promise you. It deserves to be in the top 3 for most memorable episodes. Number 2, Worlds Without End. Once again, this is a great episode. Airtight, Barbecue, Flint, Lady J, Steeler, Clutch, and Grunt. Accidentally set off an experimental device that ends up shunting them into an alternate reality where Cobra has taken control. I mean, imagine the Washington Monument with Cobra Commander's chrome face, Destro, and the Crimson Twins, or the Lincoln Memorial as the Cobra Commander Memorial. Imagine a reality where the Dreadnoks are cops. That is Worlds Without End. And the Joe team were traitors and have all tragically been killed in action during the last war with Cobra. Another great thing about Worlds Without End is in this reality, Destro and Cobra Commander really are on opposite sides, because Destro was always a mercenary weapon supplier that Cobra Commander simply just needed in every single episode, thereby he seemed to be a member of Cobra. But if you look at the Hasbro action figures, Destro ran a unit called the Iron Grenadiers. So the whole thought of a Cobra Civil War just helped to make Worlds Without End the greatness that it was. Let's get into some honorable mentions, shall we? Let's shall. The Mass Device, the 5-part miniseries that started G.I. Joe. It introduced Duke, Scarlet, Snake Eyes, Stalker, Gung Ho, Cobra Commander, Destro, Baroness, and Major Blood. It introduced several others too. I know CoverGirl was in it. I'm pretty sure Clutch was. I'm not 100% positive anymore. But it introduced just enough of the G.I. Joe characters to make a 5-part epic as great as it was, and just successful enough to eventually lead to another miniseries and eventually lead to syndication. Pyramids of Darkness was the 5-part miniseries that started G.I. Joe in syndication. Notably, it introduced Quick Kick and it introduced the Crimson Twins. It also introduced Alpine Bazooka, Dusty, Airtight, several of the Joes. But I mean, these were going to be fairly pivotal characters in a lot of episodes of G.I. Joe. So they needed a grand introduction. The Rise Serpentor Arise kicked off Season 2 with the appropriate bang, and honestly, this is about the best writing that Season 2 had, was the 5-part opener. And honestly, for as annoying as Cobra Commander sometimes was, I could never stomach Serpentor. The Synthoid Conspiracy was another great 2-parter in which Cobra Commander tried to hogtie the G.I. Joes by replacing their generals with Synthoid clones and replacing Duke with a Synthoid as well, in order to lower morale for the Joe team and hogtie their budget. And it ended up with the G.I. Joes aligning themselves with Destro, at least temporarily, to stop the Synthoids. No Place Like Springfield was a 2-parter that was the finale for Season 1. It brought back the Synthoids, only this time it was a bunch of Synthoids of the G.I. Joes, because Cobra Commander had set things up to make Shipwreck believe that the war between Joe and Cobra was over and that he was living in Springfield, but it was one long nightmare for Shipwreck because he had information stored in his subconscious that Cobra Commander was after. So they knocked Shipwreck out, made him appear older, and gave him a family full of Synthoids, along with Synthoids of his fellow Joe team members, all programmed to act like the war with Cobra was over, and this was years in the future. This was heavy stuff for the 1980s. And again, I say, the writing in the episodes on Season 2 was never the same, so Season 1 went out with the appropriate bang. The Traitor. The Traitor centered itself around one of my favorite G.I. Joes, Ronald Rudette, codenamed Dusty. Dusty was put in a bind because his mother needed a lot of medical care and a lot of money for those medicines. Extensive enterprises went to Dusty, and out of desperation, Dusty worked for Cobra for a nice two-parter, or so it seemed. It was nice to see Dusty take center stage. He was definitely one of my favorite action figures when I was little, and you didn't see him on screen often enough. The Games Master. The Games Master was a morbidly obese man-child who just had a yen for playing computer games or for playing with very expensive mechanical toys. He managed to trap Flint, Lady J, Cobra Commander, and the Baroness on his island for one giant game. And once Joe and Cobra figured out that neither one side nor the other had their missing teammates, it was pretty epic to see Joe and Cobra working together. I mean, other than that, this was basically the premise of the Funhouse all over again, replacing Cobra Commander with a one-off, very, very whiny, very childish villain. Lasers in the Night. Quick Kick is set up with a nice little romance with a very idealistic young lady who is determined to join the Joe team. Meanwhile, Cobra Commander plans to use lasers to put his face in the moon to basically terrorize anyone looking up at the moon. Okay, what made Lasers in the Night so great was that the Baroness managed to sneak into Joe headquarters undercover and infiltrate the Joe team, and the audience could never have been the wiser. It was one of her better disguises. Satellite Down. Satellite Down was one of those classic early episodes of G.I. Joe. Dusty and boy, hang on. No, Dusty was no longer with Lady J when she got lost. There was a scene right after Lady J got lost, and well, there were two Joes who were lost. I know Lady J was. Dusty finally questioned Flint that if whether or not he liked girls with guts, and Flint finally came back with professionally yes, and personally he'd prefer to see Lady J stick around for a while. Because Flint and Lady J shared the exact same shared possibly even a deeper relationship than Duke and Scarlet did. Never mind that in the comics that it was Snake Eyes and Scarlet who got paired off. But anyway, Cobra manages to shoot down a satellite, and it lands in a very primitive village, and two of the Joes have to get it back. Might be Dusty and Spirit. Might have been Spirit. And this is why these are honorable mentions, as I don't remember them quite as well. The Cobra Claws are coming to town. Cobra Claws are coming to town. Obviously a Christmas-themed episode. Cobra Commander and his forces managed to infiltrate G.I. Joe headquarters and managed to take off in their vehicles to a small town to try to cause mayhem and destruction in G.I. Joe's name. There is a Z story about Mutt and how Christmas makes him sad, but no one cares. Never a fan of Mutt and Junkyard. Law and Order were the dog and handler who I had as figures when I was little. The Viper is coming. There were so many episodes. There were a handful of G.I. Joe episodes that were just strict comedy gold. Cold Slither was one of them. The Viper is coming is another one. I mean, the entire episode is every single day the phone rings with a mysterious voice. The Viper is coming. Okay, someone called the Viper. It was Barbecue who picked up the phone. It had to be a message from Cobra, right? I mean, day after day after day. And he only shares one bit of information at a time before the Joes drop the receiver on him in absolute shock that they have heard once again from this guy, the Viper. But it turns into this wild goose chase where they end up infiltrating an innocent Cobra R&R center. They do manage to stop Cobra from abducting the military brass on another day. And on the third day, they just lay waste to extensive enterprises, all because of tips that they get from the Viper. You have to see the end of the episode to believe it. You have to see the end of the episode to believe this one and just how hilarious it was. The Wrong Stuff, also very hilarious. It was an episode where Cobra took over television to try to mislead the folks. They launched the Cobra Television Network. The $1 Million Medic was a great episode from Season 2. It was one of very few actual great episodes from Season 2. Lifeline, the new G.I. Joe medic and a pacifist, finally met a romance with, a kind of bumbling billionaire's daughter. I mean, she was very idealistic. She always meant well, but she was kind of a bumbling lady. Once Upon a Joe. Once again, great comedy from Season 2. This time from Season 2. There's a device called the MacGuffin device that actually projects people's thoughts. Toward the end there, that's what we're dealing with. At long last, we have been through numbers 10 through 2. We have been through at least as many honorable mentions as were slots on the list. Number 1. The Revenge of Cobra, otherwise known as the Weather Dominator. Oh, this was absolute gold. It was the second G.I. Joe miniseries, so this was the year before it was broadcast. They were broadcast in syndication, and this was the episode that introduced Flint, Lady J, Mutt and Junkyard, Spirit, Shipwreck, Storm Shadow, and Zartan and the Dreadnoks, let alone introducing the rivalry that that Spirit and Storm Shadow shared. That was just so great that it was constantly repeated. And it was also one of the few times that Zartan and the Dreadnoks literally did act like their own unit and try to pit the Joe team against Cobra, with them as the middlemen. That plus Destro's Weather Dominator was a very appropriate weapon to merit its own 5-part miniseries. It was such a great device. And it was one of the few occasions when Cobra was extremely threatening. I mean, the first 2 miniseries saw a lot more threatening Cobra Commander than he would become once G.I. Joe hit syndication. So those are my top 10 episodes of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero. Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe!